Good morning. I was making sure all the settings were right. How are you this morning? Welcome to Peace Out, where we're all learning together to just figure out how to peace out, right? In the middle of craziness, in the middle of crazy weather, in the middle of a crazy government, in the middle of a crazy world, I immediately thought of Isaiah chapter 6 when he saw the Lord and he was like, "Oh, I live in the midst of a wicked generation." And I'm like, "We do too," right? Me too, right? And so sometimes things can get really crazy around us, right? Sometimes when it gets too peaceful around us, that's the crazy part because we don't know what to do with that, right? Because it's like, is something going to explode? Am I going to explode? What is going on? Which I have very few of those moments, so that's not a problem, right? So, not a problem. Anyway, I hope you had a great weekend and I hope you have a great week planned. And I got a new planner. I'm having to figure it out. It's got a whole lot more than I've ever had in a planner. And I'm trying to figure out all those little pieces and which parts work for me and which parts don't work for me, right? So, because what I was doing was working, but I wanted just a little bit more. You ever been in that place? So, it's the same thing with the word. I'm like, hey, I got it, I love it, but I just need a little bit more. So, I'm so enjoying just reading the New Testament through once again. And today, actually, I think yesterday I started in Luke. I think it was yesterday, and today I've made it to chapter 6. Luke is wordy. He was like Paul. Paul was wordy on some things, and so Luke is very wordy. He's very detailed, but he was the an intellectual of the day, right? He was a doctor, a physician, so he was the educated of the day. So he goes into great detail sometimes where some of the other writers of the Gospels didn't do that. And I really like that because it gives me a different perspective. It gives me something more to think about. And you know what? I'm finding that managing my thoughts is one of the big key pieces to learning how to let God's peace reign, right? Because there are days where his it's easy. Things go good. Chris feels good. He does well. I do well. There are other days where things don't go as well. Things are a little tight. Got situations to deal with, just like you. We all have our own stories, right? And then it takes a little longer to as this scripture we're going to look at here in a minute, it says the man dug deep, and sometimes we got to dig a little deeper to find that peace. We got to dig through more emotions and push more bad thoughts aside, and we got to work a little harder to get in there, right? And then some days it's pretty easy going, "Oh God, you can just have this, I don't know how to deal with it," right? And some days it's really easy, and some situations are easier to give to him and let his peace replace our raw emotions or our broken emotions or our broken hearts, things like that, right? And some things we just have to take back to him over and over and over. I've got one big thing on my heart that I just over the whole weekend I've just been taking it back to God every second I think about it, every time I think about it, God, and I just pour prayers into that situation, and I'm praying for a specific person and who's in a very very hard spot, and those affected by her being in a hard spot, right? And so it's not so I'm letting his peace reign over and over, but it's okay to do it over and over. If you it doesn't stick the first time, or the situation presents itself, or the thought presents itself again, just do it again. It's okay. It doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you're not trusting him. It doesn't mean that you're not moving in the right direction. Just do it over and over again. If you, however many times a day you have to, just continually let his peace reign in your heart, taking those thoughts, those anxieties, those requests to him. That's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, because in Luke 6 I found this story about the house that was built on the rock. Now we used to I remember we used to sing it. Now this one's not exactly the one that we used to sing, the wise man built his house on the rock, right? I think this is the same story, but Luke takes kind of a different take on it. He says this. He says, "Whoever comes to me, hears my saying, and does them." Now that's three big things. But we can still do it today. Now, he was talking very natural. He was talking about those who come to hear him. He was always pressed in with a crowd that wanted to hear his teaching. It was the Pharisees that didn't want to hear it. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religious order of the day, were always trying to trip him up, try to find some. He was enraged. They were enraged, it says, when he healed the man who was paralyzed. It says they were enraged. They were angry when he did things, or when he read scriptures, because it agitated who they really were. because they weren't religious. They were very religious, but they didn't understand relationship. They didn't understand the old covenant, the new covenant. They didn't understand. They memorized the word, but they didn't apply it to their heart. They memorized the word, but they didn't let it change. Let the word change them. Right? They just did it as a show, and they just did it as a duty. They didn't do it because they loved God. Right? And that's the key behind finding peace and walking in peace, is that relationship and loving God. Because if we love God, we can't lose this battle, right? No matter what it presents itself. Anyway, so Jesus says this: whoever comes to me, hears my sayings, and does them is like a man building a house who dug deep. That's digging deep. Those three actions, and I called this triple play. That triple play is digging deep, right? And lay the foundation on the rock, which of course we know Jesus is our rock. He's the only foundation we have, right? And then when the flood rose and the stream beat against the house, it could not shake it, for it is founded on the rock. Don't we have stuff coming at us all? Isn't that why we're talking about peace for almost 4 years now? Because we had stuff coming at us. We started it in the middle of a pandemic. That was a major deal, and for us at that moment. Now we look back and go, it really probably wasn't quite as big as they thought, right? But we didn't know, and that was the scary part. We were like, are we all going to die? Are we all going to live? Are we all going to be impaired for the rest of our, we didn't know. It was so foreign. And from that has come so many other circumstances. And besides that, there were already other circumstances we were dealing with, and so there's always things coming at us. But if we have the firm foundation, which is Christ, and we build everything we are on him, we're going to stand. It didn't say he built his house on the rock and then there were never any floods again. He built his house on the rock and nothing ever bothered him again. He lived happily ever after. There's no happily ever after in the scriptures. We're promised persecution. We're promised tribulation. We're promised struggles. But we're also promised that in the middle of all of that, Christ is our firm foundation, and this word will bail our souls out. But the things are going to come. All of our Bible heroes are our heroes because they went through something, not because they avoided it. We don't build faith to avoid things. We build our faith and stand on Christ to get through things so that those things don't overcome us and overwhelm us. This is our key to overcoming, not avoidance, right? And so, but I want to go back to the triple play. He built his house, but how did he build on a foundation? How did he dig deep? It says Jesus did three things: comes to me, comes to Jesus, hears his sayings, and does them. And that's the big catch. So for us, it would be still the same. We come to Jesus. And when we have situations and problems and good things, we can bring them all to him, right? We can bring it all. There's nothing off the table, right? Nothing is off the table. God doesn't say bring everything, but you can bring all your emotions, except I can't deal with your anxiety right now. Tone it down, then come back later, right? There's nothing off the table. We got to come to him just like we are. He also doesn't say go take a bath and then come back. We don't get cleaned up to see God, or we don't get cleaned up to go to God. We go to God and he does that work. He makes us righteous when we come to him, when we accept the sacrifice of Christ, right? So come to him. That's the first thing. Just say, God, I know you're out there. Even if you don't have a relationship with him, God, I know you're out there. I know you exist. I don't even know how to come to you. He will meet you there. Remember, we've talked several places about meeting places. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about, I know, I don't even want to say this, but I'm thinking about another devotional about meeting places because of the places God just showed up. And he'll show up in our lives too. We present ourselves to him. We come to him. Here's my sayings. And we're not standing there listening to Jesus' voice, which would be awesome, wouldn't it? But we do have the things he said in a book. And we are responsible for reading it. We can read his sayings. We can read the old covenant that he had with all of our heroes of faith, with those that he walked through the fire with, those he went in the lion's den with, those who walked through the flood with, those people who faced grievous circumstances. But God was there with them. We have a record of that, and we can believe in that same God today. So we can still read his word. But then here's the catch. We can come to him, we can read his word, then we got to do it. We got to do it. We got to, that's triple play. Come to God, hear him, listen to him, learn about him, and then do what this says. And that's sometimes the catch. That's not easy. Can I say that? It's not always easy. It's not always easy because he just said a little bit ago, you got to love your enemies. That's not always easy, y'all. I'd rather just, well, I won't say that, but let's throat punch them or something. At least make them, set them over in the corner or something. Make them be quiet. But he's like, love your enemies. Pray for those who misuse you or despitefully use you. Pray for them. Yeah, I got some prayers. No, not those kind of prayers. Earnestly pray for them. What? So that they will know God. So that they will see that his peace reigns in your heart no matter what. And sometimes that's what makes them mad. Can't help that. That's their problem, right? They got to do this same triple play. They have to come to God if they want healing. Come to God. Hear his sayings. Hear what he says. Read his word. Study his word. Be a disciple of his word. And then do what he says. And you know what? The main thing, don't start writing down a whole bunch of laws and rules and stuff, okay? Don't start writing down a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so, like, oh, no, I need to do this, I need to do that. No, you got to do two things. One, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, body, and strength. That's the number one thing. That's doing it, right? And number two, love your neighbor as yourself. And I won't get off on this because my time's already up, but we don't love ourselves. We have a generation that doesn't love. We don't know how to love ourselves, or we go to the other extreme and we love ourselves too much. We got to find that in between, right? We want to love ourselves. We take care of ourselves. When my body says I'm hungry, I go, okay, let's eat, right? My body says I want a cup of coffee. I go, okay, let's go get a cup of coffee. My body says I do love myself, even if I think I don't, right? But we don't want to love ourselves too much, and we don't want to hate ourselves. And so that's a major issue in this world today. So here's our triple play again. Come to God. Hear his words. Hear his sayings. Read his word. Really hear it with your heart. And then live it. Do it. That's our triple play. And when we do that, peace is going to be there because we're going to those are the actions of digging down deep and building a foundation on God, right? On the solid rock, which is Jesus, right? And then when we do that, we're going to have his peace. It'll be inevitable that we have his peace, that we experience his peace, that we understand that who he is and how he covers us and how he loves us and how he keeps us even in the middle of pandemics and a crazy, crazy, crazy world, right? That's when we can peace out. So you guys peace out. Have a great day. I'll see you again tomorrow.